Hello and welcome to episode 185 of the official EstablishTheRun.com podcast. My name is Adam Levitan. I'm one of the co-founders here at ETR, as always joined by fellow co-founder Evan Silva. And the 2021 NFL Draft is indeed in the rearview mirror. We have a very clear picture now of each team's roster and the fantasy season ahead of us. Evan, how's it going?
Good. People should go make sure to check out the AFC draft recap. I'm presently working. We just recorded it. I'm presently working on finishing up the NFC draft grades, which hopefully I'll be able to post on the site by tonight. We do have this underdog draft that are we doing like a live stream?
Yeah. I'm not sure exactly what we're doing. They're having some like outrageous party in Miami, and Evan and I have been invited so graciously not to come to Miami, but to actually go in on Zoom and do a draft. So shout out to us.
Cool.
All right. As Evan said, on today's show, we're going to go team by team through each NFC franchise's draft, talking about fantasy implications, betting, and more. On the previous episode, we talked about AFC. Before we get into it, wanted to make sure everyone was aware of this special offer from our friends at Underdog with best ball season upon us. They are running a $25 buy-in, $1 million to first best ball tournament. If you use the link in the show notes and or promo code ETR after your deposit, they'll give you a free $25 on top of whatever you deposit. That is for new or existing users. They're only offering this through Tuesday, so check it out soon. Again, link is in the show notes, promo code ETR, $25 on top of any deposit. The Arizona Cardinals, I thought, made a really interesting pick at 49th overall with Rondale Moore. Obviously, they don't think Andy Isabella can play whatsoever. We've known that for a while. They've been really hesitant to use him at all, even in desperate situations. So they bring in Rondale Moore. Now they have Rondale Moore. They have DeAndre Hopkins. They have Christian Kirk. They have AJ Green. And no matter what you think of AJ Green, I think Evan and I both agree that he's almost donezo, but that's a pretty nice 4 wide receiver set. What will the fake sharp Cliff Kingsbury do with it? However, what do you think about Rondale Moore's landing spot and the Cardinals draft?
First of all, Rondale Moore, if you watch him play in 2018 at Purdue, and he's been like injured ever since. What an incredible player. He's really little, but he is just impossible to tackle. He's a ferocious dude, and he's like bulked up since then. He was like 19 years old then. I did like that pick, and I think that this should allow Cliff Kingsbury to run 4 receiver sets like he wants to do with DeAndre Hopkins and AJ Green on the outside, and Rondale Moore and Christian Kirk in the slots.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
I before the draft, I thought that there was some possibility, though, that a team might envision Rondale Moore using him quite a bit in the backfield. So I wonder if that would be a threat to Chase Edmonds. But I think that Chase Edmonds came out of this thing pretty clean. The Cardinals have talked him up as their starter. They began the offseason by doing that. And then the only significant true running back addition that they made was James Conner near the league minimum. So I think that, and I'm a Chase Edmonds stan, so I have to, admit my bias here. But I think that he has come out of this looking pretty nice.
Yeah, I didn't think that Chase Edmonds was really a winner from the draft because I didn't expect them to take a running back. I thought James Conner was enough. He's their big back, James Conner, and Chase Edmonds was going to play. I didn't really expect them to take a running back, and I thought the Rondale Moore thing, you're right. You could see 3-4 jet sweeps or stuff like that to Rondale Moore. Not out of the question. Still very much like Chase Edmonds, though, and, you can still get him in the 60s or 70s from the drafts that I've seen so far. Atlanta, at number 4 overall, they go for the unicorn in Kyle Pitts, and they also did not take a running back, man. So, it's Mike Davis, aka 90% CMC, Cordero Patterson, Quadre Ollison. I would note that Gurley, Le'Veon Bell, Duke Johnson are still on the market. They could add someone, but right now it looks like they have a lot of faith in Mike Davis. One thing I was thinking about the Falcons, though, man, and what would be my strategy if I had this roster? Julio, Ridley, Pitts, Gage, Hurst, Mike Davis. I'm throwing the ball on every play. I could see Atlanta being the top 5 in pass rate over expectation this year, and that's how you have huge fantasies. They don't have any pass rushers. If I'm not mistaken, this could be one of the worst pass rushes in the league, and then you also have a situation where they're going to be throwing the ball every time. This should be shootout central, great for DFS. What do you think of the Falcons draft?
Yeah, and I think that Arthur Smith, although he comes from, kind of made his hay, on the back of Derrick Henry to some extent, he also like did really smart things, really progressive things, hiking the play action rate in Tennessee and maximizing the talent in Tennessee and understanding who to get the ball to. And, guys had a bunch of career years under him, not just Derrick Henry. I mean, Corey Davis had the best season of his career. We've seen how he maximized AJ Brown. Ryan Tannehill has had 2 really good years under Arthur Smith. Guys like Anthony Ferkser became contributors. Jonnu Smith emerged as, one of the best run after catch tight ends in football. So I think that just because he's got this background with Derrick Henry doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to run that style of offense in Atlanta. I think that he's going to, do a scouting assessment of the talent that he has, and then he's going to feature the talent appropriately, and that's going to mean efficiency and pass volume in the passing game. And this team should score a ton of points after adding Kyle Pitts and not trading Julio Jones. Let's hope that they hang on to Julio Jones because, man, I'm feeling good about my 100-1 and 80-1 MVP bets on Matt Ryan with this pass catcher core. And they added to the offensive line. I mean, they drafted Jalen Mayfield, who was a quality starter at Michigan, potential tackle or guard in the top 70. They took Drew Dahlman, starting center at Stanford, like a zone blocking center in the 4th round. And they also added to their secondary with Richie Grant, who was a big-time playmaker at Central Florida, and then Darren Hall out of San Diego State. I think that they had a solid draft, and I think they're going to score a ton of points this year, man.
Yep, for sure. Yeah, I'm excited about them for fantasy, undoubtedly. Carolina Panthers decided to pass on Justin Fields and go with J.C. Horn instead. I think Evan predicted that accurately. And then in round 2, I thought they were fortunate to get Terrace Marshall to slip to them. I mean, this offense is loaded. I know nobody wants to hear this take, man. Nobody wants to hear it. But Sam Darnold's 23. He was coached by Adam Gase the last 2 years. He had incompetent offensive line, incompetent weapons. The scheme was abysmal. Now he has Matt Rule, Joe Brady, Christian McCaffrey, DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson, Terrace Marshall. They added Brady Christensen, 70th overall, the tackle. I mean, I don't want to say Sam Darnold's going to blow the roof off, but I think he's going to be fine. Like, is he really going to be worse than Teddy Bridgewater was last year? I think Sam Darnold can play at that level. And if so, I mean, there's a lot of exciting pieces here. I think DJ Moore, Christian McCaffrey, Robbie, even Terrace Marshall can all have really good seasons under Sam Darnold. What do you think about their decision to pass on Justin Fields and the Panthers draft as a whole?
Yeah, and playing under Joe Brady, I mean, I think, going from Adam Gase to Joe Brady, it's night and day. Yeah. So I like your optimism. I don't know if I'm there yet, but I'm hopeful because I think that, the Jets just did Sam Darnold so wrong in New York, and he needed to get the heck out of there. Yeah. J.C. Horn, rock solid pick, chase number 1 receivers in the SEC. Big, long, athletic, great pick at number 8. Terrace Marshall, yeah, I mean, I think he'll get an opportunity to play early. Joe Brady knows him from LSU. I mean, that is working in his favor undoubtedly. And they've really only got. I know they signed David Moore, but they didn't really give him very much money, and so that's who Terrace Marshall will compete for playing time behind Robbie Anderson and DJ Moore. Brigham Young, offensive tackle Brady Christian, dude is 25. He went on a Mormon mission before he went to BYU, and so he's really old. But I don't know. Sometimes like teams convince themselves that means that he'll be like more mature and ready to play, and maybe he will. Because they could sure use the tackle help. And then Tommy Tremble, this tight end depth chart should be wide open with Dan Arnold and Ian Thomas. Ian Thomas, shoot, I could see him even getting cut. But Tommy Tremble in the 3rd round, his blocking ability is going to get him on the field. And then I think he might have some untapped potential as a pass catcher. So that was an interesting pick. Chuba Hubbard, I took him in a pre-draft dynasty rookie draft just because he was like the highest rated dude on the board. I think that this was a fine landing spot for him behind Christian McCaffrey.
Oh, yeah. Love the name Chuba Hubbard. Oops. Oh, yeah. Love Chuba Hubbard. At least the name. Okay. Chicago. We're talking decades. I mean, maybe, like, honestly, I can't remember last time Chicago has been excited about a quarterback. It literally could be like 50 years. Like, I'm not even exaggerating. They make the move. They trade up. Somehow they get a trade up with Dave Gettleman. They get up to number 11 and they take Justin Fields. I mean, this is like, I don't know. I'm sure in Chicago, people are going berserk right now about how excited they are to finally have a quarterback. They can at least say, look, this guy could, even if we don't think it's likely, he at least has a chance to be something special. They never felt like that about Mitch Trubisky. Nobody feels like that about Andy Dalton. At least Justin Fields has a chance. So I think it's exciting, man. What do you think of the Bears draft as a whole? I mean, everybody's got to be excited in Chicago.
Yeah, I was listening to the radio this morning, and yeah, everybody's excited. Everybody's excited. Good for them. I mean, I've been really hard on the Bears, and I think appropriately so over the past. We just did a podcast with Matt Kelly and I, just trashing them. But they had a great draft, man. I mean, and they really didn't give up that much to go get Justin Fields. I mean, you look at the compensation that San Francisco, and I realize they traded into the top 3, and this was only to number 11. But you look at the compensation that San Francisco sacrificed to go get Trey Lance versus what the Bears gave up to go get Justin Fields, and how much better of a prospect is Trey Lance than Justin Fields? I mean, I kind of like Justin Fields better. And the Bears, San Francisco wound up essentially sacrificing 3 1s and a 3, and the Bears just gave up next year's 1st and 4th to get up there. And so, and then, and we've killed the Bears for trading up, but when it's appropriate, I think it's worth it. Not for a running back, not for some defensive tackle, but you trade up for a quarterback, and then you trade up for a left tackle. They're going to play Tevin Jenkins at left tackle. They just cut Charles Leno. And all they had to give up to move from 52 to 39 was number 83 overall. I mean, absolutely worth it. And then they kind of, they took stabs at a bunch of dudes on day 3 that, normal draft would probably be undrafted free agents. But still, I mean, that was so huge to get, maybe the 2 most highest impact positions in the sport, knock those out of the park at number 1 and at number 11 and number 39 overall. You have to take your hat off to them. They had a great draft. I'm giving them an A+.
Whoa. An A+ for Ryan Pace's Bears from Evan. They're gonna have to remove that Matt Kelly podcast from the airwaves. Exciting stuff.
Get that canceled.
Yeah, I had some Minnesota bets. Minnesota to win the division, Minnesota over, and it doesn't look as good if we think the Bears have improved that much.
It's still looking good. I think now is the time to hammer the Bears and the Vikings with this possibility that Aaron Rodgers isn't playing.
Yeah.
I mean, no, the Vikings are still looking good. 8.5. And I saw the juice today was down to is now at -155.
Yeah.
They're going to win 9 games, dude. They're going to win 9 games. And you could have got the Bears at 6.5. I was betting the Bears, even though I don't like the Bears. I was betting the Bears at over 6.5 because that was just, I mean, they can't go 7-10.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, there's only so many wins to be had in the division. A lot of this is going to come down to Aaron Rodgers and how much will he play. Obviously, we both think Detroit's only going to win a few games, but what percent chance do you think Aaron Rodgers plays the full season is going to be huge in this, and that's why the market's moving and kind of flopping around.
If Green Bay has to go to Jordan Love, I mean, that team is going to fall off a cliff. They're actually still favored to win the NFC North. I think that now is the time to be hitting the Bears and the Vikings to win the division. The Vikings preferably.
Yeah. Well, we're going to talk about this Green Bay stuff more in a second, though. Wanted to talk about Dallas first. They used their first six picks on defense, did the Dallas Cowboys, including Micah Parsons, with their first pick. I mean, that's what they had to do. I mean, this offense is going to be awesome, and they're getting their offensive line back. They're getting Dak back. The wide receivers are outrageous. Even they're getting Blake Jarwin back. I mean, they're just so loaded on offense. 6 picks in a row, though, on defense. Do you think that'll have an impact on their defense? What do you think of their draft?
Yeah, I mean, they just did what they needed to do. I don't think that there's a whole lot to add to that.
Yeah.
We know that they're returning an offense that should absolutely compete to be top 5, if not top 3 in scoring. And they are, and they had to go hard on defense, and they did. I mean, they didn't really do much in free agency on defense. Their only real big move was just changing out their defensive coordinators. So they needed to go hard, and they did. They did what they needed to do.
Let's move to Detroit. Maybe we should have seen this coming with the whole kneecaps thing, but they went offensive tackle with Penny Sewell at number 7, defensive tackle at number 41, defensive tackle at number 72. They didn't address their dire wide receiver situation until 112. But, this team is so bad, they need to take best players available. I'm not going to sit here and say, I think Penny Sewell was a good pick at 7. I have no idea if the defensive tackles were best player available when they took them. But, I mean, just kind of a boring draft for Detroit. It's going to be really hard to get anybody excited about what the Lions are bringing to the table this year.
Yeah, I saw a lot of people saying that they love the Lions draft, and I was like, why? They also, I mean, Penny Sewell is nice, to get a really good player at number 7. But other than that, I mean, a bunch of defensive tackles, a slot receiver, and they also traded away a 2022 4th round pick. That's not what rebuilding teams should be doing. I wasn't impressed with it really at all.
Yeah, and it looks like
they've got it. They're going to have a good offensive line, but they're not going to, they're not going to be able to score points.
Yeah. I mean, their weapon, I mean, God, I think Tyrell Williams is, okay. I think Brashad Perriman is better than people think, but still just okay. They're going to be like it's going to be like TJ Hawkinson and I don't know, man. Not good. Green Bay Packers. So yeah,
and they had the opportunity to take Justin Fields.
Yeah.
And kickstart their rebuild that way, but they did not. Yeah. And they didn't trade down and get more picks. They didn't go after 2022 draft capital. They traded away 2022 draft capital. I completely disagree with the narrative that the Lions did well in this draft.
Yeah, no, we talked about that with Mays before the draft, that if you're not going to take a quarterback at 7, trade back and let some team like the Bears, who really wants a quarterback, to trade up and acquire some capital. That's how you would do a TTP, trust the process, rebuild. Green Bay Packers, we've talked a bunch about the Aaron Rodgers stuff already. I guess, I don't know, Evan, is there any percentage chance, how much credence are you giving these Aaron Rodgers rumors right now, both in the betting market, and if you were doing a draft right now, where would you take Devontae Adams? Do you actually think Aaron Rodgers is going to sit out this year to host Jeopardy or something?
I mean, it sounds like a Carson Palmer situation where he just does not want to play for this organization ever again. He hates the GM. He hates the team president or CEO or whatever his title is, Mark Murphy, who pretends to be the owner. Mm-hmm. No, I mean, I don't. Why does he need to go play football? I mean, he could take a year off, let his body heal, be the host of Jeopardy. Spend a year with his fiance. He's got a ton of money. Go do commercials. I don't know. Why does he need to go? He doesn't need to go play.
I mean, you could say that he's at the peak of his powers right now, and he might only have 3 years left until it's over for him, And so if he wants to win.
He's also got into helping small businesses where he's where he's from in California. He started a big fund for that. Or gave $1 million to small businesses. I think it's Chico, California, or something like that. I don't know. I think he has off-field interest, and more power to him, man.
One thing they've definitely done him dirty on is not spending to get him weapons in free agency and not spending any draft capital on wide receivers. I mean, they never spend to help him. And I feel like that's you can keep saying that, it's not a big deal. He keeps winning the MVP. That's results oriented stuff, process oriented stuff would be getting him more weapons to help him. So They did take Amari Rodgers, Clemson wide receiver, 85th overall. I don't know what you think about him, but generally speaking, what you think about the draft. And obviously this is all just, regardless, if Rodgers doesn't play, Aaron Rodgers doesn't play, they're obviously in big, big trouble.
Yeah, I mean, like Stokes, they need an upgrade on Kevin King. Kevin King has just been an underachiever and can't stay healthy. And Stokes is a good prospect, runs like the wind, was consistent year over year, well graded in PFF's charting metrics for, in the SEC. Josh Myers, the center that they got out of Ohio State, I think that he might start day one in place of Corey Linsley. They're going to have a really good offensive line. Amari Rodgers reminds me a lot of Randall Cobb. But Randall Cobb isn't Randall Cobb, in his prime, with Jordan Love throwing to him. Yeah. So everything is going to melt if they have to go to Jordan Love.
Yeah, for sure. I'd love to be behind the scenes and see what they're doing right now to try to mend this situation with Aaron Rodgers. Los Angeles Rams, they have this sick house in Malibu. Of course, they don't have a first round pick yet. Again, they finally get to pick at number 57 overall, and they take a guy who weighs less than me, 150-pound wide receiver, Tutu Atwell. They took over Terrace Marshall. I mean, I cannot be on board with this. Evan, I don't know what you think about the player, but just in generally speaking, these kind of players have such a poor track record, and your first pick is this 150-pound kid. I don't know, man. What do you think of what the Rams did?
I think they totally blew it. 155 pound. This is not an NFL player. Not an NFL player. I wasn't impressed with pretty much anybody that they drafted. I mean, some of the middle round guys, Bobby Brown and Robert Rochelle, I like them coming out, but I don't think they're going to get the real impact that they got from this draft is that they got Jalen Ramsey and they got Austin Corbett, who was their who wound up being a fine starter for them at right guard. 155-pound players do not play in the NFL. That's not happening unless you're a kicker.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really interesting, man, because I do think Sean McVay thinks about all this stuff, and he must have signed off on this pick. So we'll see. But Terrace Marshall is going to be a player, I think, and Tutu Atwell is a huge underdog to be so. Minnesota Vikings, 23rd overall. They took Christian Darrisaw, the offensive tackle from Virginia Tech. They also added a quarterback, Kellen Mond, at 66th overall. I agree with you that Kirk Cousins is better and doesn't deserve the disrespect that he's gotten through the years, but maybe they're grooming eventual replacement in Kellen Mond. What do you think about the Vikings draft?
I thought it was awesome how they were able to trade down out of 14 and still get Darrisaw, because that was a huge, huge need for them. They're just going to plug and play him right at left tackle. And all of a sudden, their offensive line is starting to look pretty good. Garrett Bradbury, a first-round pick at center. Brian O'Neill, who's been their best offensive lineman at right tackle. And now Darrisaw, the 23rd overall pick. Apparently, Rick Spielman, their GM, was after trading down, was then trying to trade back up to get Darrisaw, but he wound up just falling to him anyway. So that was a terrific turn of events. They used another third-round pick on offensive line in Wyatt Davis. I'm all of a sudden feeling pretty good about their offensive line, and that's been a problem area for them for a long time. So I really like that for our over 8.5 win bets. And then I think that they got kind of a steal. The Pittsburgh edge rusher, Patrick Jones, I think he has a chance to be an early impact player, maybe even compete to start opposite Danielle Hunter. And it sounds like they're confident in Danielle Hunter coming back from his neck injury. Mike Zimmer said he fully expects him to be ready to go whenever they start practicing in the offseason. And those are the two biggest concerns for them after they poured a bunch of resources into their secondary. Their biggest concerns are pass rush and offensive line. And I'm feeling pretty good about both of those position groups right now.
Dalvin Cook's been able to smash despite the offensive line issues. We actually have Dalvin Cook second in our rankings right now behind only Christian McCaffrey. We'll see when Evans' top 150 comes out. But yeah, I mean, can only help Dalvin Cook with the improvements on the offensive line. New Orleans Saints. I don't have a lot to say about the Saints here. They didn't take any wide receivers, which I thought was a little bit of a surprise until Kawan Baker at 250 overall or 255 overall. Maybe a vote of confidence for Traquan or some of these other young wide receivers that they have on the team. What do you think about the Saints draft?
Yeah, not a great draft. Not a great draft. Peyton, I mean, just in terms of like relative to where guys are expected to go. And I realize that, the expectation of where a guy's supposed to go isn't, the determining factor as to whether they're going to be a good player. But these guys were not expected to go, as early as the Saints took them. Peyton Turner, the edge rusher, was more like a player maybe expected to go in the 50s, although Daniel Jeremiah did note him as a player that might sneak into the back end of the first round. And then Pete Werner, thought he was more of like a third or fourth round player. They took him at 60 overall. Paulson Adebo out of Stanford, they traded up to go get him. They gave up 2 third rounders to go draft him in the third round. That's a lot to give up for, like a guy who's probably not going to start as a rookie. And then Ian Book. I mean, Ian Book, and I watched like every snap of Ian Book's career. He has no chance of playing in the NFL. None whatsoever. He actually brought down the talent that they had at Notre Dame. And they had like Chase Claypool and Miles Boykin and Cole Kmet. I mean, the best offensive line in college football every year. And he actually de-escalated what they should have done. He brought them down, and I mean he's going to be a coach before he's likelier to be a coach somewhere within the next 4 years than he is to play out his rookie deal. I mean, wow, they're taking him in the 4th round. Terrible pick.
Don't mess with Evan on the Notre Dame stuff. We know Evan knows everything about everything, but Evan watches every snap in Notre Dame football for you guys who don't know. And don't mess with him on these Notre Dame guys for sure. Giants. So you can listen on Friday to Friday's podcast. We talked about the Kadarius Toney pick and why we didn't really like it very much. Corain chimed in with the analytics side of why Kadarius Toney was a really thin pick. I will say the defense, like I think Giants defense can be really good. This Azeez Ojulari, I know people like a lot. They took him 50th overall out of Georgia. I have a bet plus 450 on the Giants to win the NFC East. And I think that that's a really big number. And if Daniel Jones can just get his head on straight for just some semblance, and Jason Garrett can just allow some semblance of production for the offense, I think the defense can be pretty good. What do you think about the Giants draft?
Well, I loved the move. I loved a number of these moves that Dave Gettleman made. He traded down twice, and he picked up the Bears 1st and 4th next year. And then he traded down again with the Dolphins and picked up the Dolphins 2022 third rounder. So, and I think that was smart, trading out of this draft and getting in a next year's draft, which is expected to be awesome. And they'll actually have full seasons of tape on those guys. This draft was like filled with opt-outs and guys who only put 4 games on tape, the previous year. I mean, this was a really dicey draft. I think it's the worst draft that we've ever seen, probably. So trading out of this draft, I think made a lot of sense and I think was smart. It's just, Ojulari was a good pick. He's got major knee concerns. That's why he fell out of the first round all the way down to number 50. They took Kadarius Toney over Rashad Bateman, Elijah Moore, and Christian Darrisaw, all of whom I think were better prospects and play, better prospects. And then Darrisaw plays a bigger position of need. We were talking with Jordan Renan about, and I mean, he was like defending them taking a wide receiver over offensive line. I mean, I still disagree with him. Yeah. Obviously I respect his opinion, but I disagree with him. I think that they should have taken Christian Darrisaw over Kadarius Toney, a gadget guy who, I mean, how much are they going to get out of, how much is Jason Garrett going to get out of Kadarius Toney behind Sterling Shepard, Kenny Golladay, Darius Slayton, Evan Ingram, and Saquon Barkley? What is Kadarius Toney going to do?
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe he'll prove us wrong. I don't know.
I think they think that both Ingram and Shepard can be gone after this year. So, I
mean, they got to like last to next year. They have to make it to next year.
For sure. Speaking of wide receivers, the Eagles made the trade up. We talked about this on Friday as well to go get Devontae Smith. They also, in the second round, got Landon Dickerson out of Alabama. at 37. I thought one interesting pick they made, Kenneth Gainwell, went really late. Kenneth Gainwell went like 150th overall. I think he's interesting talking about because he could be a threat to Miles Sanders' pass catching role. And, I don't want to say a 5th round pick is a real threat, but it's at least worth mentioning. What do you think of the Eagles draft and the Kenneth Gainwell addition?
I really like Gainwell as like a prospect, as like a late round prospect. And yeah, I mean, poor Boston Scott, was he a 7th round pick or a UDFA? I can't remember either way.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Yeah, either way, that's he's going to put pressure on Boston Scott, who, I mean, has done really well for the Eagles as like the number 2 and sometimes fill-in starter. They moved up for Devonta Smith. I don't think they gave up too much. They gave up the 84th overall pick to go from 12 to 10. That's okay, ensuring that you get – I mean, I understand that there's concerns about the weight of Devonta Smith, but, man, I think that the thing to bet on here is the production at the highest level of college football. And this dude won the Blitnikoff Award and the Heisman Trophy. And he was uncoverable. And I think that they absolutely had to go get him. I really like the pick of Landon Dickerson. I think he's going to start at guard right away. And then Milton Williams was a player that Lance Zierlein mentioned that might sneak into the back end of the first round. They got him at 73rd overall. His measurables are like on par with Aaron Donald's. He's a smaller defensive tackle, but just a stud in terms of athleticism, and was very, very productive at Louisiana Tech. I think that they had a pretty good draft.
I mean, I talked about Dallas's offensive line going from really bad to getting really good this year. Eagles' offensive line has a chance to go from really bad last year to getting guys like Lane Johnson, like Brandon Brooks back, adding Landon Dickerson. I mean, they have a chance to have a really good offensive line this year as well if they can stay healthy for once. San Francisco, we already talked about the Trey Lance stuff on Friday. I'm curious your take, though, on the Trey Sermon stuff. They traded up. Kyle Shanahan traded up to get Trey Sermon at 88th overall. If you heard Matt Waldman on one of our shows before the draft, Matt Waldman actually had Trey Sermon as his number 1 running back in this class from a tape evaluation standpoint. Trey Sermon's going to compete with Raheem Mostert, Jeff Wilson, Wayne Gallman. In the draft that me and Leone did, the underdog draft me and Leone did last night, we took Trey Sermon at 87th overall. I think Trey Sermon has a chance to emerge here as kind of the leader of this committee. But what do you think of the Trey Sermon pick in San Francisco's draft?
Trey Sermon, 25-1 to win Offensive Rookie of the Year.
Yeah. Why not?
Yeah, maybe.
I mean, it's likely to be a court.
I mean, I think it's a great fit, man. I think it's a great fit. Love that Kyle showed conviction to go get him. I don't think that they have any kind of commitment to force touches to Raheem Mostert and the other guys. I mean, they probably will, but there's a chance that they won't. I think that Trey Sermon has a ton of upside right away in fantasy. Their offense has a chance to be a lot more dynamic than it would have been with Jimmy Garoppolo. Now with Trey Lance, the Notre Dame guard that they got, Aaron Banks, just a huge mountain of a man who can really, really move, and he's going to start right away, I think. I think that they had, a nice draft. I think that, and there's a lot of fantasy implications here too.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And like, as much as we like Raheem Mostert, I mean, we were playing Raheem Mostert in preseason DFS in 2015. It's now 2021. Like, he's getting up there in the age model, and they don't have a lot tied up in him anyways. So yeah, I certainly like Trey Sermon where we got him last night, 87th overall. Seattle Seahawks, 56th overall pick was Dwayne Eskridge. And this is an interesting one, Evan. I don't think you like the player, or maybe I'm mistaken there. You can correct me if I'm wrong. But Russ has turned guys who, the efficiency that Russ can show. And if people are going to be down on Dwayne Eskridge because of his analytics profile, I would want to be buying on Dwayne Eskridge. Draft capital is a lot here. 56th overall pick was Dwayne Eskridge. He can just walk right into the David Moore role. I mean, there was value in having Russ stacks, triple Russ stacks, or double Russ stacks, which didn't include one of Lockett and Metcalf, but did include David Moore, and try to get those touchdowns that way. So yeah, I'm interested in your thoughts on Eskridge and also the Seahawks draft.
Now, he just never had like big time production at Western Michigan. He is already 24 years old, and he like shuttled between wide receiver and cornerback. So, I mean, the name of the game here for the Seahawks draft was that they just gave it all up to get Jamal Adams, Carlos Dunlap, and Gabe Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
And that's 3 really good players. And then, they went on the board at 56 and they took Dwayne Eskridge. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. I don't like betting on players that weren't productive at like a small school and then are already really old. Like you didn't dominate when you were 23 years old playing against, 19-year-olds in the MAC or whatever, wherever Western Michigan plays. I mean,
it's the MAC. I mean, I think he'd be drawing dead if he was playing for, I don't know, Eagles or Giants or even Vikings or Saints, but I just have so much faith in Russ' ability to make guys.
He's got opportunity. It's good. It's good for fantasy. Yeah.
Tampa Bay. I don't have a lot to say with Tampa Bay. I mean, they didn't have any holes. They returned every starter from the Super Bowl champion team. They took Kyle Trask at 64th overall, just in case Tom Brady ever retires. Any thoughts on the Bucs draft?
No. They return all 22 starters, so there's not a lot of opportunity there for other guys to step in, barring injuries. Joe Tryon, another Notre Dame offensive lineman, Robert Hainsey, just kind of adding to the trenches. And I think that those were pretty good picks.
Last one we're going to do is the Washington football team. Dare I say our Washington football team. They went with defense in the first round. I thought they would go offensive tackle for sure. They ended up going defense. Linebacker Jamin Davis at 19th overall. This defense is so loaded, man. And then I like the Dyami Brown pick at 82. Like I thought they quietly had a bit of a hole at number 3 wide receiver. Now they can throw out there McLaurin, Curtis Samuel, Dyami Brown, Antonio Gibson, Logan Thomas. I mean, This offense is loaded. I already had them over 8 wins, minus 110. Went to bet it again last night. It's now 8. I think it was minus 134. I got over 8 minus 134. I mean, I just keep every time I go back into the app, I'm like, well, best bet here is Washington over 8. Let me just put some more on it. So I don't know, man. What do you think of the Redskins? I'm sorry, the Washington football team's draft.
Yeah, I wish that they would have taken Christian Darrisaw over Jamin Davis. I mean, I think they're going to probably line up Sam Cosmi potentially as their starting left tackle, or he's going to compete with this holdover Sadiq Charles. I'm still a little worried about the left side of their offensive line, but I'm with you. I'm on the optimistic side for Washington. I definitely think that they can win the division. That I like the over on their win total. I think they did fine.
All right, that is going to do it for this NFC team by team NFL draft recap. We'll be back later this week with Leone and Herzig to talk about general strat for the Underdog $25 buy-in, $1 million to first massive best ball tournament. Again, until Tuesday, you can get $25 for free if you use the link in the description below, promo code ETR on top of any deposit. For producer Luke, for Evan, I am Adam. Good luck, everybody.